and start over, the first step is to recognize your regret. The second, to release it. Now in this session, we'll talk about the third step in the process, and it's best described by the word redeem. There is no other word that so richly defines the way you break free from regret and are able to move ahead. In the New Testament, the word for redemption is used predominantly to describe what Jesus did when he gave up his life for us on the cross. But it also reminds us that Jesus delivers us from regret and can make something wonderful out of each and every one of them. There may be no more beautiful picture of redemption than the scene that we find in Jesus' epic story of the prodigal son. He's burdened by the weight of his regret for leaving home, rejecting his father, but the son returns home and he's stunned to find his father running toward him with wide open arms to welcome him home. Historically, the word redemption was used in reference to the purchase of a slave's freedom. A slave was redeemed when the price was paid for his freedom. Now, why is that relevant? Because you can choose to be enslaved by your regrets, or you can let God redeem your regrets and find a freedom that he can only give you through Jesus. God's redemption can set you free from the captivity to the sorry cycle. He takes what once you considered loss and he turns it into a gain. He restores the hope that you thought was maybe gone forever. What sets this step of the process apart from the previous two is that redemption is not something you can do. Let me say it again. It's not something you can do. Rather, it's something only God can do. You simply bring your regrets to him and you ask him to do what only he can do, to make something beautiful out of them. Now, I can't tell you in advance what your redemption is going to look like, but whatever your redemption turns out to be, I'm telling you, it'll be something incredible. A mistake turned into a miracle. Evil converted to great good. Tragedy transformed into tremendous opportunity. God's redemption doesn't erase whatever it was that happened that caused you regret. But his redemption does set in a larger context of goodness and transforms the darkness of the past into this bright new future.
So I remember wrecking my car, and the next thing I know, I come to, and I have no idea where I am. None. I'm looking around, and I know I'm in some sort of hospital. I asked the guy where I was, one of the patients, and he told me I was in the state mental ward, and I just remember thinking, oh God, I gotta get out of here. And as I'm laying in this hospital bed, and the nurses are asking me to move upstairs into the nut ward again. My only motivation at that point is I didn't want to hurt people anymore. I didn't want to hurt my family. I didn't want to hurt my fiance. I didn't want to hurt strangers. I just didn't want to hurt people with my life anymore. So I made a decision to go upstairs to accommodate their desires into the mental ward. But I'd made up my mind that the minute I get out that I'm going to take my own life. That's my worldview at that point. I'm in a mental ward, and I know I'm going to take my life, and I know there is no way out. So as I'm sitting in this mental institution, and there was a woman who obviously had more issues going on than just substance abuse, but she was coloring, and she broke her crayon. And in breaking that crayon, she started shrieking and thought the world was ending and her life was over. And I was trying to explain to her that it's just a crayon and that the world's not ending and her life's not over. In that moment, it was as if God had just whispered to me that it might not be over for me either. And that was the first glimmer of hope that I had felt in years. Years. The mental ward offered to transfer me down to a rehab facility in Florida, even though I'd been to 1 million treatment centers and I didn't think they could help me. That little voice of God that said, maybe it's not quite over for you either, gave me just enough willingness to say, okay. I'm alone in Florida. Every belonging I have did actually fit in a garbage bag. I'm kind of a mess at that point, so even though I have hope, my life, I shouldn't have hope. So if you look at the state of my life when I'm in Florida, I'm homeless, I'm jobless, I have a broken shoulder, and this charity at the treatment center is gonna run out soon, and then what? I have nowhere to go and nothing to do, and so I shouldn't have hope, but God just has a way of doing some pretty amazing things. And I remember sitting, I was down there and I was at this bus stop, realizing that I can't fix all the things that I've done. and I can't fix my own life. I also realized that maybe that's not what living is about. The point I'd missed the whole time throughout these years of even trying to follow Christ is that it's really not about me. Maybe it's all about God. And so maybe what I can do instead of regret all that I've done, use that experience to be able to relate with others and maybe help show them the way out the same way that someone brought me out. So I came up and I was able to reconcile things with my family, and I went to try and make things right with my ex. Obviously that went well because today we're married. We have 2 children, a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. The biggest thing that starting over means to me is the willingness to not just let go of the past, because it's not, people always say that, you gotta let go and move on, but you can't forget what's happened. So I don't think that's the answer. When I think about starting over, what it's meant for me is to be willing to let go, instead of the past, let go of what the future's supposed to look like. This whole idea that I need to know the outcome of how to fix things, and say, okay, I am a drug addict. I did lose everything. Like, I was this ugly person. I had these hard things happen. I did these terrible things. God, how can we use those to some sort of good?